the Rhine. From Mainz to Koblenz. We begin our journey at the confluence of Rhine and Main. Mainz on the left is today's capital of Rhineland-Palatinate. From the 8th to the 19th century, the episcopal seat of the prince-electors and archbishops. At the promenade, the electoral castle, the cupola of the Church of Jesus Christ behind the castle, the house of the German order, St. Peter's Church from the 18th century, and the Zeug House at the Theodor Heuss Bridge. The electoral castle was the former residence of the archbishops of Mainz. The castle is a Renaissance building from the 17th century. The cupola of the Church of Jesus Christ. It was built in 1903. The house of the German order is today's office of the government of Rhineland-Palatinate. On the gable, the coat of arms of the German order. The house was built from 1730 to 1737. Today, the Zeug House is a government building. It was built during the 18th century. The coat of arms on the gable shows two lions and a wheel, the coat of arms of the electors of Mainz, a statue of a warrior above the gable. The 6 towers of the cathedral can be seen from far away. In the city center, the huge Romanesque cathedral. The eastern chancel, also called Emperor's Chancel, is the oldest part of the cathedral. The stairways were built around 1100, but the small galleries around 1300. The small galleries are typically Romanesque. They are located at the end of the apsis. The cross above the chancel, and a lion as a decoration. The huge late Romanesque square tower on top of the west chancel has a Baroque roof. A cross. The house of the Kaiser or Emperor is named after a statue of the Emperor above the entrance. The Renaissance building from the 17th century today is part of the Gutenberg Museum, a museum for old printing techniques. The statue of the Emperor wears the crown of the Holy Roman Empire of German nation. From Mainz, we continue our journey downstream. Opposite Mainz, on the other side of the river, Wiesbaden's district Biebrich, the former castle of the Dukes of Nassau. The castle is a long Baroque building from the 17th and 18th centuries. On the right side of the Rhine are the vineyards of the Rheingau. Especially Riesling is planted in the Rheingau. It has small grapes, and it is one of the best wine sorts. To get a good wine out of the grapes, the plants have to be looked after very carefully for the whole year. Villa, one of the Rheingau's most famous towns, is our next stop. The Rhine Promenade. The old town of Villa has a Gothic church from the 14th century. The wine villages Östlich Winkel, where famous wine sorts like the Österreichische Ländchen or the Winkler Hasensprung are grown. An old wine crane from the middle of the 18th century. The wine village Mittenheim lies a few kilometers downstream. It became famous because of its wine sorts like the Mittelheimer Edelmann. This Romanesque cathedral was built close to the Rhine. It was opened to the public in 1138. The weather vane. Castle Johannisberg lies above the hills of the Rheingau. It was built from 1757 to 1759 by Johannes Dietzenhofer in Baroque style. Today, the castle is in possession of the electors of Metternich. All that remains of the monastery that stood in the place of the castle is the Romanesque church. The sign of Johannisberg at the town limits. It says that Johannisberg was the place of discovery of the Spätlese, which is a special way of making wine. Today, Castle Johannisberg is a famous vineyard. In front of the castle, an equestrian monument. The inscription explains how the Spätlese was discovered. It was because permission for the harvesting the grapes came too late. The wine village Geisenheim is towered by a huge late Gothic cathedral that's called Rheingauer Dom. The cathedral was finished in 1518. The complex with the church. Rüdesheim, the pearl of the Rheingau, and one of the most famous wine towns of the Middle Rhine. The flag of the Rheingauer Riesling that shows the Riesling route. Wine tastings are offered. The Drosselgasse, one of the smallest but most frequented lanes in Germany. Many souvenir shops and wine taverns are side by side here. A well-known wine tavern, a rotating thrush. The wine tavern Lindenwert. The castle of Rüdesheim with an interesting chime. Everywhere in Rüdesheim, you'll find the following: wine, music, people in good spirits, and dancing. We continue our journey to the Niederwald Monument, which is 308 meters above the ground by means of cabled railway. The monument was planned by Johann Schilling and built from 1877 to 1883. It's a memorial for the German unity of 1871. The base of the monument shows Father Rhine giving a horn to his daughter Moselle. On top of that, the reunification of Germany and Versailles is shown. The Angel of War, and the Angel of Peace on the sides of the monument. Above the Reich Eagle, a statue of Germania holding the Emperor's crown in her hand. At the confluence of Rhine and Nahe. Opposite Rüdesheim lies Bingen, an old wine village. A late Gothic church from the 15th and 16th centuries. Castle Klopp on the hills above Bingen was destroyed by the French in 1689 and was rebuilt in 1854. Close to Rüdesheim and Bingen, the Rhine breaks through the Slate Mountains. The Moiseturm, a tower from the 13th century, is located at the Binger Loch, which is known for its dangerous rapids. The Moiseturm is well known because of Archbishop Hatto. Legend has it that mice followed him to the tower. Gothic battlements at the top of the tower. A road and a railway were built through this narrow passage of the Rhine. The ruins of Castle Ehrenfels are located above the Vineyards, the main tower of the castle. Our next stop is Assmannshausen, which is famous for its red wine. The well-known Hotel Krone is located on the Rhine front. The town has many old framework houses. The old house with bays, a tower, and a beautiful weather vane. The quay of Assmannshausen with many colorful flags. On the opposite side of Assmannshausen, Castle Rheinstein. The castle was first mentioned in 1249 as a customs house. It was renovated from 1825 to 1829 by Prince Friedrich of Prussia. He was cousin of Wilhelm I, William I. Wine growers' houses at the Rhine front of Niederheimbach. This is the sign of a tavern where the wine is served by vintners. Jug and wreath are the symbols of this kind of tavern. The coat of arms of Niederheimbach. The ruins of the castle Fürstenberg over Rhein-Diebach. On the opposite side of the river, Lorsch and Castle Nolig. The St. Martin's High Church was built from the 13th to the 15th century. Now we go further through the narrow Rhine Valley. A view across Castle Stahleck, Baccarat, and the Rhine. The town still has parts of the town wall and the watchtowers and Castle Gutenfels above town. The medieval castle with its 4 towers was renovated and turned into a hotel at the end of the last century. The falls in the middle of the river were built into a reef in 1326. It used to be a customs office for the passing ships. It's an outstanding landmark. A memorial on the bank says that Field Marshal Blücher crossed the Rhine here while chasing Napoleon. And on the right, the Schönburg. The construction of the castle started in the 10th century and was destroyed in 1689. It was rebuilt later on and is a youth hostel today. Oberwesel, below the castle, is surrounded by a town wall with 18 watchtowers from the 18th century. One of those watchtowers. The Gothic Church of Our Lady and the Collegiate Church, which is called Red Church. The graveyard in front of the church. A view across the vineyards. Across the town wall to the Gothic St. Martin's Church. Beside the church, in the background, once again, the Schönburg. Passing through one of the many town gates, we arrive at the city center of Oberwesel. A monument in form of a huge glass. It says Middle Rhine, which means the middle of the Rhine. There's a lot of traffic around Oberwesel, cars and trains on land and ships on the water. And now, a highlight of our journey, the Lorelei. The Lorelei is a huge rock on the right side of the river. Legend has it that the sorceress Lorelei sang songs to attract the sailors. Whenever a ship passes the Lorelei, an old song by Heinrich Heine is played. Our journey by ship continues to St. Gorshausen, close to the Lorelei. Castle Katz, originally Neukatzenbogen, above St. Gorshausen, built in 1393 and rebuilt in 1898. St. Gor, a well-known wine village with wine taverns famous for their good wines. Castle Rheinstein was built in 1245 by the Duke von Katzenellenbogen and was destroyed in 1797 by the French. The castle is the biggest ruins in Middle Rhine. Leaving St. Gor, we continue our journey to Velmich with the electoral castle Turnberg on the right bank of the Rhine. The dukes from Katzenellenbogen in St. Gor call this castle a mouse. The Gothic church of Velmich. They are towered over by two castle ruins. The ruins of the Sterenberg Castle and the ruins of the Liebenstein Castle. Legend has it that two brothers, who were enemies, lived in those two castles. Below the two castles is Bornhofen, a place of pilgrimage. A former Franciscan church in camp. At the Bopparder Ham, a turn of the Rhine that is famous for its wine, lies Boppard. The Gothic Carmelite church has no towers. The St. Severus Church has two towers. One of the entrances to the town. Old framework houses at the market square. And the St. Severus Church. It is late Romanesque from the 12th and 13th centuries and has two big towers. On the left side of the river lies the town Rennes from the 9th century. It has a beautiful framework town hall that was built in the 16th century. The tower of the town hall. The coat of arms of Rennes. Opposite the town hall cellar restaurant, also a beautiful framework building. The decorations show grapes. The Königstuhl on a hill above Rennes is a pulpit-like building. It was built in 1308 and renovated in 1921. It was the meeting point of the electors who prepared the crowning of the emperor. the confluence of Lahn and Rhine close to Niederlandstein, a television tower on a hill on the other side of the Rhine. The town Oberlandstein on the left side of the Lahn. Castle Stolzenfels on the opposite side of the river is a former electoral castle built from 1836 to 1842. It was redesigned in a new Gothic style. Castle Lahnec was built in 1226 and destroyed by the French in 1688. It was rebuilt in 1860. The town of Oberlandstein has an old town hall. It's a late Gothic building of the 15th century and crowned by a clock tower. The windows are decorated with flowers. The gable of the building shows coats of arms and murals. The coat of arms and the murals belong to the Elector of Trier and Bavarian King Ludwig. Finally, we reach Koblenz, the last stop of our journey along the Rhine. Its old town has many churches. It's a former residence of the electors of Trier. St. Castor, the oldest church in Koblenz, located at the Rhine Quay. The church was founded in 836, but the architecture of the church today is from the 12th century. The district Koblenz-Ehrenbreitstein lies on the opposite side of the river. The Baroque castle, close to the riverbank, was office of the electoral government. The citadel, Ehrenbreitstein, is located on a ridge 118 meters above the Rhine. Classic buildings were built inside the electoral citadel from 1818 to 1826. We begin our journey along the Moselle at the Deutsches Eck, the German corner, the tongue of the land at the confluence of Moselle and Rhine in Koblenz. The former Kaiser, or Emperor Wilhelm monument, is located on the Deutsches Eck. The base of the monument. It was built in 1897 by the Prussian Rhine provinces of that time. From 1953 on, it was a memorial for German unity. A few kilometers behind Koblenz, we pass the Autobahn bridge Bonn-Mainz. A fisherman on the bank of the Moselle. Koblenz, already mentioned in 930, is a village with two castle ruins of the nobles of Koblenz. The castle, high above the village. The last knight of Koblenz was executed in 1536 because of a border dispute. A few kilometers upstream, Gondorf, the Roman port Contrua. 2 castles were built here in the 13th century. Behind the castle building, a Gothic church. In the lower castle of Gondorf, a big art collection. The quay, Coburn-Gondorf. There's a lot of traffic in the Moselle Valley. Ships on the water, cars and trains on the land. We continue our journey upstream through the many turns of the Moselle. Because of these turns, the way from Koblenz to Trier on the water is about twice as long as the way by air. A view across the vine-planted hills to the wine village Aalchen on the right side of the Moselle. The Gothic church of Aalchen. There are a lot of framework houses close to the church. A Gothic chapel and the ruins of the medieval town wall in the Vineyards. High above Aalchen and the Vineyards, the Castle Turrant, with its 2 towers, built in 1798. The main tower of Castle Turrant. The castle is entered by a drawbridge. The main gate with a relief. The wine village Hotzenpott is on the opposite side of the river. A beautiful, originally Romanesque church is located on a hill a bit outside town. Children playing along the riverbank. The ruins of Castle Bischofstein and a small Romanesque church below are between Hotzenpott and Moselle Kern. Bischofstein was built in 1270 by the electors of Trier. The big tower, parts of the building, and the Gothic chapel are still in good shape. The Romanesque church below the castle. We continue our trip along the Moselle. The 2 wine villages, Carden on the left and Trice on the right, are connected by a bridge. Carden, former town of the electors of Trier, was once the Roman town Caradona. Beautiful castle-like buildings inside the town. It is told that in the 4th century, St. Castor lived in a cave where the church is located today. The Romanesque towers on the side of the chancel and the Gothic tower with the Baroque roof on the side of the entrance. The church clock. The gable of St. Castor's transept. The church's inside is also well worth a look. Carden has nice and old framework houses. flower-decorated windows. In vino veritas, in wine is truth. What would the Moselle be without wine? That's why vintners sell it everywhere. Here you see some of the many sorts of wine and the prices of each bottle. Many of the old wine taverns have nice wrought iron signs, like the Stiftstor Wine Tavern. The coat of arms of Carden's Wines is framed with wrought iron and shows Carden's de Kampf's Mountain. Carden's Ufer Wall. Carden's Münster Mountain. Cochem, on the left bank of the Moselle, is one of the most beautiful towns in the Moselle Valley. St. Martin's Church from the 15th century is the highest point of the old town. A Capuchin monastery, a Gothic building, is on a hill left of the church. High above the town is the citadel of Cochem. It is a landmark of the Moselle. The French destroyed it in 1689, but it was rebuilt afterwards. The market square and the town hall in the center of the town. On the right, the Tower of St. Martin's, and to the left, the Capuchin Monastery. The passage through the Tower of St. Martin's to the old part of town. The entrance and the balcony of the town hall. It was built in 1739. The well on the market square. A statue is mounted unto the well. It shows St. George, who shares his coat with the beggar. Interesting framework structures around the market square. The windows are decorated with plants. The signpost shows the way to Reicherburg. It is decorated with a helmet and a lance. We leave Cochem and continue our journey upstream. We pass the river on the St. Joseph's Car Ferry. The village Beilstein, on the right side of the Moselle, has beautiful framework houses. The church stands high above the town. Some towers of the town wall are still there. The citadel Beilstein is on a hill above town. It has belonged to the electors von Metternich since 1652. Colorful flags are flying on top of hotels and taverns which accompany the Moselle. The wine village, Edige Ehle, on the left side of the Moselle. Coffee, cake, ice cream, and wine, of course, offered at the Moselle Terrace, which is how many hotels are called. The Castle Landenberg in Edige Ehle, a traditional vineyard town. Wine tastings and wine sales, as usual, in wine towns along the Moselle. Castle Landenberg has a big collection of old wine presses and cooper's tools. An old wine press. On the crossbeam of this wine press, the Latin sentence, in vino vita, which means wine is life. As we continue upstream along the vineyards of the middle part of the Moselle, we pass the towns Alf and Boulay that are opposite each other. A pedestrian bridge leads to Celle, an old town in the middle of the Moselle Valley. The turn of the river where Celle lies is called Cellerham. It's famous for its wines and one of Germany's most important wine-growing regions. An old electoral castle from 1542 in the vineyards above town. Inside the town, the Baroque parish church from the year 1792. The town is still partially surrounded by a wall. The famous cellar wine, Schwarze Katz, grows in the vineyards above town. We continue our way through the curves and vineyards of the middle of the Moselle Valley. Wine villages in a row, one after the other. Many famous wines grow in this part of the Moselle, like the Briedele Herzchen in Briedel. Traben-Trabach is a town that has districts on both sides of the Moselle. The district Traben was first mentioned in 840 as Trabanar. A bridge connects Traben to Trabach, the district on the right side of the Moselle. In front of the bridge is a quay where many sightseeing tours start. A sightseeing ship just landed and is now prepared for the next trip. The ruins of the Grafen Citadel are on the woody hills above Trabach. From Traben, we go upstream to Bernkastel-Kues. People in a hurry can take a fast motorboat. The district Bernkastel on the right bank. Bernkastel-Kues lies where the Tiefenbach flows into the Moselle. It is called a peril of the Moselle. In the vineyards close to the town grow wines like the Bernkasteler Doktor or Die Badstube. Burg Landshut is above the district Bernkastel. It was destroyed in 1692 by the French. Swans in front of the promenade of the beautiful town. The district Bernkastel has very unique framework houses from the 17th and 18th centuries. The town hall at the market square was built in 1608. The building has a Renaissance bay. A fountain located in the middle of the market square. The steps of the fountain are a popular resting place for people wandering through the pedestrian zone of Bernkastel. The town hall cellar with its beautiful Renaissance bay. Nice wrought iron signs are attached to some of the buildings, like the coffee pot at Hansen's Cafe. A sign of a wine tavern where a good local wine is sold. one of the many souvenir shops in town where you can buy all kinds of souvenirs. Some framework buildings also remain outside the market square in narrow streets. The streets lead to the vineyards above the town. There are some framework houses in the outskirts of the town. A Renaissance bay at a framework house. The Felsenstübchen, a wine tavern with a beer garden. Once again, a wrought iron sign, this time at the Hotel St. Michael, St. Michel. It has vine-like hooks. The gable of this house shows the Archangel. The old lanes lead to the vineyards. The St. Nicholas Hospital in the district Kues, on the opposite side of the river, is an old people's home today. On top of the Baroque entrance is a statue of St. Nicholas. The gable shows a coat of arms of Cardinal Cusanus. His real name was Krebs, so his coat of arms shows a crawfish and lions. The chapel and the building are connected by a Gothic monastery. The pointed arch windows are completed with late Gothic precision work. The inside of the monastery. The vault is supported by Gothic groins. An old sundial. A sort of wine that is grown in Bernkastel's district of Velen is called Velener Sonnenuhr because of it. We continue our journey to Trier. The Moselle flows through the land in many turns. This region also has famous wine villages, like Trittenheim, where the Trittenheimer Alterchen is grown. Between Bernkastel and Trier is the Roman wine route. Nowadays, freighters loaded with coal, ore, or building materials sail to the Luxembourg Industry Zone. "2,000 years ago, Roman wine ships sailed on the Moselle. This model of a wine ship is from the 4th century BC. It's displayed in Trier. The Roman wine ship is transporting barrels. It's a rowboat with a big statue on the bow. The head of the statue is a legendary creature. The rowers of the wine ship. In the tracks of the Romans, we come to Trier. The Porta Nigra, the gate of Trier. It is the biggest Roman city gate and also in the best condition. It's 36 meters wide, 23 meters long, and 30 meters high. Trier is the oldest town in Germany. It was founded in 15 BC. It was a residence of the Roman emperor and capital of the West Roman provinces. the 23-meter-long double passage through the gate. The Porta Nigra was built with limestone blocks without mortar, held only by iron crampons. A dark patina formed on the limestone, so in the 11th century it was called Porta Nigra, which means Black Gate. The ruins of the imperial bath from the 4th century. In the Middle Ages, the intact southeast corner was part of the town wall and the town gate. The antique complex had many arches. The Romans were very precise with this sort of architecture. The original size of the complex was 140 meters wide and 260 meters long. The basilica is also a famous Roman building. It was built in the beginning of the 4th century and was throne hall of Emperor Constantine. The building is made of flat bricks and is 67 meters long, 27 meters wide, 30 meters high. During Franconian times, it was a residence of the king. Later on, it was part of the electoral palace. The basilica was altered into a Protestant church and remains so today in spite of some war damage. The electoral castle was added to the basilica. It has a beautiful park with fountains. From the 12th to the 18th century, Trier was residence of the archbishops and capital of the elector, Sums of Trier. The electoral palace you see today was built in the 17th and 18th century. Today, it's the office of the district government. The stairway was built from 1757 to 1761. The Cathedral of Trier is the oldest bishop's church in Germany. In the 4th century, a Roman building was altered into a Christian church. The two towers on the west, with the winding staircases, were built in the 11th century. At the Simeon Street, the main street of Trier, you see old framework houses from the 16th and 17th century. In the center of Trier is the market square. It is surrounded by beautiful framework houses. The St. Gangolf Church is located at the south end of the market square. It was built from the 13th to the 15th century. The upper level of the tower was built in 1507. One of the painters at the market square. His picture is almost finished. It shows the southern wall of St. Gangolf. Also at the market square, the Petrus Well. It was built in 1595. A statue of St. Petrus, St. Peter, rises above the statues of angels. The statue holds the key to heaven in his hand. a grotesque ornamental animal. Baroque angels at the bottom of the Petrus monument. Stone and framework structures from the 17th century at the eastern side of the market square. There are some very interesting houses on the southwest end. One of them is the Red House from 1687, with the famous Roman sentence that says, "Before Rome there was Trier," date 1300. A statue of the Virgin on the wall of the Red House. The coat of arms is a bull. One of the most famous buildings around the market square is called the Stipe because of the pillars that support the building. Statues of saints above the pillars of the Gothic building. It was built from 1430 to 1483. At one corner of the building stands a knight with Trier's coat of arms in his hand. A few of the flowers on the market square. Some people are sitting on the base of the monument and are keeping tempo with the music. Tourist groups on their way through Trier. Tourist guides explaining the sights of Trier to them. For example, the meaning of the two lions on a gable of a house on the west side of the market square. Trier is the end of our journey along the Moselle.